Yo, what is up guys? It's me, Exactly. I don't want to sit here and thank you guys every single video, but you guys make it pretty freaking hard not for me not to do. I mean, I could do it because I seriously can't thank you guys enough, but I think there will come a point where you guys get sick of me thanking you. But I mean, like, come on. A couple days ago, literally 2 days ago, I was thanking you guys because I got almost 4,000 likes on a video really fast, which I thought was insane. And today, or yesterday, or this morning when I woke up and saw 8,000 likes on the video that I had made last night. At this point, I don't think there's anything that you guys can't do. Even though the channel has about 96,000 of you guys following it right now, it seriously feels like there's a million of you. That's how strong your support is. But like I said, I could thank you guys forever and forever and in every video because I can't thank you enough. So just know that even if I don't say it in every video, that I am forever grateful to each and last every single one of you. And I promise as I go on just to keep uploading daily NBA videos and try and make each one better than the last. And speaking of NBA videos, that's what this is, another NBA video. Now there was some news that came out yesterday, such as the Houston Rockets are now up for sale to anyone who just happens to have an extra, I don't know, $1 billion laying around in their back pocket. So if that's you, go ahead and buy the Houston Rockets. Other than that, Lonzo Ball won the Summer League MVP. I feel it was well deserved. 16 points, 9 assists, 70 rebounds per game. Yeah, if you ask me, he deserved that. So congratulations to him and looking forward to seeing what he can do as well as what the rest of the rookie class can do this upcoming season. And the Los Angeles Lakers defeated the Portland Trail Blazers to become the Summer League champions without Lonzo Ball since he was out with a strained calf, I believe. Shout out to that man Kyle Kuzma. He's another player where he looks like he could be a second round steal of the draft. He won the finals MVP of the Summer League yesterday. So all of that happened in the NBA yesterday, and it all was some pretty good and interesting stuff that I could probably make separate videos on. However, there was nothing bigger, no news that outshined this news right here. Paul Pierce getting a contract from the Boston Celtics so he could retire with the team where he built his legacy. And I guess I should mention real quick that it was just a one-day contract. Don't expect to see Paul Pierce suit up for the Boston Celtics next year. It's not happening. This move was strictly done so he could officially retire with the Boston Celtics. It was just the right thing to do. And this isn't the first time we've seen this happen. We saw it with Kevin Garnett when he went back to the Wolves for a season so he could retire with them. Allen Iverson did the same thing with the Sixers back in, what year was that? 2009? That was 8 years ago? Man, that seems like it just happened yesterday. Time is moving so fast. And Chauncey Billups did the same thing with my Pistons a couple of years back too. So seeing players go back to their roots or the teams that define them the most is nothing completely out of the ordinary, which is why I chose to make this video today, because I feel like Paul Pierce might be one of the most overlooked players that the NBA has ever seen. And it could be for a couple of reasons. The main reason, I think, if you look back at the 2000 era, you had guys like T-Mac, Vince Carter, Kobe, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, Shaquille O'Neal, Kevin Garnett. All of those guys were much flashier, more exciting to watch in a sense than Paul Pierce. Whereas Paul Pierce, on the other hand, was more of the Tim Duncan type of player. Not saying he was like emotionless, because he was far from emotionless on the court. It's just that he wasn't as athletic as those other guys, and his game was more methodical and slow pace, kind of like Tim Duncan. Don't get me wrong though, he was also very capable of some nights making fans get out of their seats or putting some guys on the wrong end of a poster. And in my opinion, in the clutch, when it matters most, there is no player in the NBA I would rather watch than Paul Pierce. The man hit more big shots than I can remember. But like I said, Paul Pierce just wasn't as flashy as some of those other guys, which I feel caused him to be kind of overlooked, especially today amongst some of the newer NBA fans. When they talk about the 2000s, you hear names mentioned once again like Kevin Garnett, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, Kobe Bryant, Shaq, Tim Duncan, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, Allen Iverson. And those players, of course, get nothing but the respect they deserve for the most part. And I'm not saying that people don't respect Paul Pierce, but maybe just not as much, or sometimes he does get completely overlooked. And I feel that's just because some people really never got to see how great Paul Pierce was. So I decided today to kind of like talk about Paul Pierce and how him being overlooked was the story of his basketball career, especially early on. let's start off in the early days. Growing up in Inglewood, California, one of the most dangerous places to live in the US, Pierce was often overlooked as an athlete because of his two older brothers, Jamal, who got a college scholarship playing basketball, and Steven, who had a baseball scholarship. Meanwhile, Paul Pierce was the shorter, more overweight, less athletic younger brother. He was just always practicing his shot at local parks while his brothers were off winning awards and getting those scholarships. And fast forward to his high school career, and he started that off by being severely overlooked. His freshman year of high school, Paul Pierce didn't even make the varsity team. The coach said that he was too short. He was only about 5'8" at the time, I believe. At the same time as coach said he was a bit overweight for his size, kind of unathletic, and just overall, according to his coach, an average basketball player at best. And of course that devastated Paul Pierce. I mean, what 14 or 15-year-old kid who had dreams of making the NBA one day wouldn't be devastated by hearing that? At the very least, he wanted to be like his two older brothers who excelled early on in their high school careers at the sports they chose, and to be told that he was an average basketball player at best, it hurt Pierce so much that he wanted to transfer schools. But he decided instead that he was going to tough it out. He was going to go to the gym and work every day and dedicate himself to becoming better so he could come back next year and prove the coach wrong. And he did. Well, kinda. See, Pierce in his sophomore year made the varsity team, except he never got off the bench. Paul Pierce was a high school bench warmer, and to make things even worse, his coach was planning on demoting him back to the junior varsity team until the team was entered into a holiday basketball tournament, but 5 of their players were on vacation and unable to make the tournament, so they had to keep Pierce on their roster as sort of a just in case we absolutely need to put him in the game type of thing. And it was in the first game of the tournament where Paul Pierce finally got his shot. Paul Pierce's team, the Inglewood Sentinels, were down 19 points in the second half, and the coach said that there was no way that he saw the team coming back to win the game. So he decided to finally let Paul Pierce play. And guess what happened? Guess what freaking happened? The Sentinels won that game. Do you know how or why? Because as soon as he stepped onto the court, Paul Pierce became a legend. Paul Pierce went off. Take a listen to what he did in that game, and keep in mind that this was just through little under 2 quarters. The third quarter was halfway over by the time Paul Pierce got into the game. But Paul Pierce still put out 21 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists that game in under 2 quarters of play. If Paul Pierce played the whole game, he probably would have had like 40 points, 20 rebounds, and 12 assists. I can't even imagine what must have been going through his coach's head at that point. He was about to demote Pierce back to the JV team. He told Pierce that he wasn't good enough, that he was an average basketball player at best. Well, that average basketball player at best basically never sat on the bench again. He would go on to start the rest of his high school career on the varsity team. You can bet that. Matter of fact, by his senior year, Paul Pierce was the #1 rated player in the state of California. He would also go on to make the McDonald's All-American basketball team, playing alongside future NBA stars like Kevin Garnett, Vince Carter, Anton Jameson, and Stephon Marbury. But like I said, throughout his early days in his high school career, his basketball career, Paul Pierce was severely overlooked. You don't get any more overlooked than being a freaking bench warmer. But he turned it around and made people see the truth. But the overlooking didn't stop there. After high school and even after college, even though he was a star in college, where in his 3 years with the Kansas Jayhawks, he had a career average of 16 points and 6 rebounds. Headed into the NBA draft, scouts and teams had questions about Paul Pierce, mainly due to his athleticism. He excelled in college and in high school, but how would he stack up against the athletes in the NBA? Would he have the foot speed? Would he be athletic enough to keep up in the NBA? And it was because of those doubts that Paul Pierce fell all the way to number 10 in the draft, but behind players like Michael Olowokandi, Raif LaFrance, Robert Taylor, and Larry Hughes. To a lesser extent, because they weren't bad players or anything, but they certainly were on Pierce's level. You could say the teams overlooked him by picking Mike Bibby, Anton Jameson, and Jason Williams over him as well. But once again, once his rookie season started, he proved all the people that were doubting him, overlooking him wrong, when he averaged nearly 17 points per game. And if they still didn't believe, he upped it to nearly 20 points per game in his second year in the NBA, and it became clear that he was a top 3 player of that draft class. The other 2 players being Dirk Nowitzki and Vince Carter. But it was in his 3rd year in the NBA where Pierce finally put all the doubters to rest. His breakout season in the NBA, where he went from just being a good player who could drop 20 points per game to a legit superstar who was averaging over 25 points per game. Even Shaquille O'Neal, one of the biggest icons of the game during that time, a member of the defending champion LA Lakers, coming off an MVP season, said that he had heard of Paul Pierce back when he was in high school, but really didn't know how good he was. He was overlooking Pierce. That's one thing you are learning you never do. The Boston Celtics traveled to LA back in 2001 to take on the Lakers in the infamous Staples Center. That Celtics team really had no business at all playing against the Lakers. The Celtics were a below 500 team, and the Lakers were on their way to once again becoming champions of the NBA. But thanks for Paul Pierce exploding for 42 points on 13 of 19 shooting from the field, being literally unguardable the entire game. The Celtics still lost, but only by 5. But just the fact they were able to make a game out of it thanks to Paul Pierce having a game like that was kind of a victory in and of itself. And after that game, Shaq's eyes were open. He would never doubt Paul Pierce again, as he went on after that game to give Paul Pierce his nickname, The Truth, since he said it's because he's so good that his game doesn't lie.
Paul Pierce is the mother truth.
He told him that I was the bleep, bleep, bleep truth.
I knew the kid can play, but I didn't know he can play like that. Don't take anything out of it. Paul Pierce is the truth.
So you can say that going into that game, Paul Pierce was being overlooked by some of the better players in the NBA. However, after that game, he joined the Kobes, the Shaqs, the Iverson, as really becoming one of the game's elite players of that era. And to this day, really outside of Celtics fans, unless you grew up watching basketball in the early to mid 2000s, I'd say even before 2008, when Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen joined the Boston Celtics and Paul Pierce chose to make sacrifices to his game and his numbers in order to win a ring, you might not know exactly how good Paul Pierce was. And that's to no fault of your own if that caused you to overlook Paul Pierce. There's players that were before my time that I'm sure I'm overlooking because I never really got to experience them or see them play. And I just thought that now, since he officially retired as a Celtic and will most likely have his jersey retired by the Boston Celtics this year, that it was the right time to shed some truth on the truth. And that's going to lead us to the question of the day. Do you have a favorite Paul Pierce memory? If so, let me know what it is down in the comment section below. But now let's take a look at what you guys said in yesterday's video. And yesterday, after a report came out that LeBron James was apparently upset with the moves or lack of moves that the Cleveland Cavaliers have made so far this summer, I asked you guys if LeBron should be upset, and here's what you said. Question of the day: why don't you pronounce the R in frustrating? Of course he should be mad. When you lose, you're supposed to try as hard as you can to improve for the next year. They got Calderon and a washed up Jeff Green, while his opponents have 2 MVPs and a defensive player of the year. Question of the day: LeBron shouldn't be frustrated about the roster because he pretty much built that team. It backfired on him, and now he's blaming everybody else for what's almost essentially his fault. First off, I don't know why, but to me the word frustrating is kind of like a tongue twister. So when I try and say it fluently, it comes out as frustrating without the R. And to be honest, I can see why LeBron would be upset since he is a competitor and wants to compete and his team hasn't made any moves to compete. But the reality of the situation is that the Cavs really can't make a move to compete, and letting go of David Griffin in the middle of trade talks for Jimmy Butler was just a bad look all around. Like always though, don't forget to leave your answers for today's question of the day down in the comment section below. But other than that, thank you once again for watching this video. I hope you guys did enjoy it. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more daily NBA videos. And until tomorrow, keep getting the buckets, Team SDC, and I'm out of here.